the summer of 1779, as Jefferson settles into his role as governor, the war begins to move south, and the threat of violence looms over Virginia.
The British have been waging war for 5 years at this point. They're angry. This war has been very unpleasant for the British. It hasn't gone very well.
It's one thing to go into a country and try to depose a set of rulers. It's another thing to try to occupy a large swath of territory. Armies take. They need food, need shelter, space. They generate hostility to their presence. The British Army just couldn't manage the process of being an occupying force against what was a much weaker power but had the home field advantage.
So it's been a nasty, intractable insurgency in many respects, and they've kind of taken off the gloves.
But as Jefferson bears the weight on his shoulders for the responsibility of protecting and defending the Commonwealth of Virginia, Jefferson and others just do not believe that the enemy is going to have any effect on Virginia. He says the war is happening up north, and he says Virginia farmers need to return to business. They need to return to farming and the sustenance of their families.
However, at the end of 1779 and the beginning of 1780, British ships have been seen off the coast of Virginia. And he's slow in reacting to that.
And then on January 1st, 1781, 1,600 British troops, including an elite Green Coat division under Benedict Arnold, known as Dragoons, storm Richmond and wreak havoc on the new capital city.
There are constant British attacks, a very fateful one of which is led by the traitor Benedict Arnold.
When the British come, an enslaved man says, within 10 minutes, there wasn't a white man to be seen in town. Everybody else had scattered to the four winds.
Jefferson is struggling to govern a society that is falling apart around him.
When British forces arrive, the Virginia troops don't stand a chance.
The invasion of Virginia is an existential moment for him. You have the most powerful army in the world in your neighborhood. And from a quarry as significant as Thomas Jefferson, there would be immense personal insecurity about falling into the hands of the British.
And then Jefferson himself is almost captured by Arnold's forces.
The British officers say, "Where is Governor Jefferson? We are here with these silver handcuffs to take Governor Jefferson prisoner."
But he escapes, and the government has to flee Richmond. They go to Charlottesville. Virginia's a mess.
As British troops march west through Virginia, the threat against Jefferson grows. With each passing day, the British get closer and closer to the new capital in Charlottesville and his home, Monticello.
So in May of 1781, he sends a letter to George Washington. It's another plea to Washington for help.
Jefferson writes to Washington, "The whole force of the enemy within this state, I think, is about 7,000 men. Your Excellency will judge from this state of things, and from what you know of your own country, what it may probably suffer during the present campaign."
And the British continue to attempt to capture Jefferson.
And then a man named Jack Jouett, who owns and operates the tavern in Cuckoo, Virginia, he overhears a number of British dragoons reveal themselves the more they consume of the orders of British Lieutenant Colonel Bannister Tarleton to proceed westward and seek the capture of Governor Jefferson.
Jouett rode overnight 40 miles. It's very much like Paul Revere warning that the British were going to attack Lexington and Concord 5 years before. In fact, it's a much longer ride. And he arrives at Monticello before the British do.
And Jouett forewarns them, saying, "Gentlemen, they may be but a few moments behind me."
According to the legend, Jefferson gave him a glass of Madeira, thanked him for his efforts, but Jefferson didn't leave right away. He put his family in a carriage, sending them on their way down to land that Jefferson owned down near Lynchburg, Virginia, but he waited to leave.
Taking his time, Jefferson proceeds very calmly to bury the state papers below the floorboards of his dining room. And then finally, at the last moment, Jefferson sets off on horseback. And he rides to Mount Alto, the taller mountain just to the west of Monticello.
Enslaved people had shoed the horseshoes on backwards. So that way, when the horse is running down the mountain, it looks like Jefferson is actually running up the mountain, and it confuses the British.
He rides up along the side of the mountain, and then he dismounts from his horse to look back at Monticello through his spyglass. And there they are.
When Jefferson flees Monticello, he leaves it in the hands of his most trusted enslaved family, the Hemmingses.
They storm Monticello, and Martin Hemmings, who's Elizabeth Hemmings's eldest son, greets them at the front door and refuses to allow them entry and refuses to tell them where Jefferson is. Of course, they were going to kill him if they had done so.
The captain of the British Dragoons takes from his side saddle a pistol, says, "You will tell me where Governor Jefferson is, or I will inflict a mortal wound." To which Hemmings pulls his coat back and replies, "Fire away."
After tearing Monticello apart, as they search for Jefferson, the British realize they are too late.
Captain McLeod says, "Come on, boys, I understand Jefferson has the best stock wine cellar in all of Virginia." They all help themselves. And it happens to be King George III's birthday, June the 4th. There might have been a toast. They place the wine bottles in their satchels, and they ride off.
Monticello is left intact, but Jefferson, whose second term as governor ended 2 days prior, is brutally criticized for how he handled the invasion.
The citizens of Virginia think he's left his duty at the moment of great peril. He's totally disgraced.
The House of Delegates launches an inquiry into his actions as governor of Virginia in organizing the defense of the state. It's a low point of his public life. Washington sends him a very thoughtful and measured and kind letter saying, "You're a good friend and your service was great." And he more or less says, "You're being unfairly criticized." But part of being a man in Virginia, a man of that elite class, meant showing physical bravery and showing tenacity. This is an honor culture. And it was a very military culture. It's a culture that valued military service. This is why these men fight duels. This is why Washington is so admired in this period, and Jefferson admired Washington. But Jefferson's skills didn't lie in that area, and so he's presented as a coward.
Jefferson leaves his governorship as a laughingstock. The once celebrated revolutionary retreats back to Monticello in disgrace. By the fall of 1781, the tides of war begin to turn in favor of the Americans as Spanish, Dutch, and French forces join the rebels in their fight against Britain. The war culminates in Yorktown, Virginia. British troops under General Cornwallis had set up a base at Yorktown. But on September 28, 1781, Washington's troops and his French allies placed Cornwallis's base under siege. After more than 3 weeks of relentless battle, the British surrender, essentially ending the Revolutionary War.